When a ruthless biker kicked a dog for fun, he was completely unaware that Keanu Reeves is the owner. What started as a peaceful afternoon walk would soon escalate into a dramatic confrontation, proving once again that you should never mess with a man's dog. The concrete walls of Brooklyn Heights trapped the morning heat around the bustling film set of John Wick. The air was thick with the scent of hot asphalt and the faint aroma of street food wafting from nearby vendors. Camera equipment littered the area, cables snaking across the ground like dormant serpents. "That's a wrap for this scene, folks." The director's voice cut through the cacophony of the set. "We'll take a 1-hour lunch break and meet back here for the next shoot." His announcement was met with a collective sigh of relief from the crew, who had been working tirelessly since dawn. As the crew began to disperse, their voices filled with excited chatter about lunch plans, a group gathered near the catering truck. "Hey Keanu," one of them called out. "We're heading to that new deli on Atlantic Avenue. Want to join us?" Keanu Reeves turned towards the voice, a friendly smile playing on his lips. However, his attention was quickly drawn to Buddy, the pit bull who had been featuring in their scenes. The dog stood panting heavily in the heat, his tongue lolling out as he sought relief from the oppressive temperature. "You guys go ahead," Keanu replied, his eyes still on Buddy. "I think I'll take care of our four-legged friend here and give him a walk. He looks like he could use it." The dog keeper, a lanky man with a clipboard tucked under his arm, stepped forward. "That's all right, Mr. Reeves. I can take care of Buddy. It's my job, after all." Keanu held up a hand, his expression earnest. "I'd like to do it if that's okay. It'll help me bond with him for our upcoming scenes." He paused, a thoughtful look crossing his face. "Plus, I've always been curious about what it's like to own a dog, even if it's just for a short while." The dog keeper hesitated, his brow furrowing slightly. Keanu quickly added, "Don't worry, we won't go far. I'll make sure he gets a snack and something to drink." After a moment's consideration, the dog keeper nodded. "All right, Mr. Reeves, just be careful. Buddy's a sweetheart, but he can be a handful sometimes." With the dog keeper's approval secured, Keanu set about preparing for their walk. The dog keeper handed him a sturdy leash, a handful of plastic bags for waste collection, and a collapsible silicone water container. Keanu carefully secured the leash to Buddy's collar, his movements gentle and deliberate. He tucked the other items into the pockets of his leather jacket, patting them to ensure they were secure. Kneeling down to Buddy's level, Keanu spoke in a warm, friendly tone. "Are you up for a walk, Buddy? Are you thirsty? Let's find a quiet place to rest." Buddy's tail wagged enthusiastically in response, his earlier signs of discomfort momentarily forgotten in the face of Keanu's attention. "I know you're thirsty," Keanu continued, noting the dog's continued panting. "Let's find you a water fountain. I'm sorry I don't have my water with me today." Standing up, Keanu turned to the remaining crew members. "See you all in an hour," he called out, giving a small wave. With that, he gently tugged on Buddy's leash, and the unlikely pair set off into the streets of Brooklyn Heights, leaving behind the controlled chaos of the film set for the unpredictable adventure that awaited them. Keanu and Buddy made their way through the sun-drenched streets of Brooklyn Heights, the midday heat reflecting off the pavement in shimmering waves. Buddy's panting had intensified, his need for water becoming more urgent with each passing minute. Keanu's eyes scanned the surroundings, searching for any sign of a public water fountain or a dog-friendly establishment. As they turned a corner, an imposing structure came into view. The sign above the door read "Iron and Ash," its weathered letters suggesting a long-standing presence in the neighborhood. The unmistakable rumble of motorcycles filled the air, and a row of gleaming bikes stood parked across the entrance like sentinels guarding a fortress. Keanu's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene, his grip on Buddy's leash tightening instinctively. The biker bar exuded an aura of toughness and barely contained aggression, a stark contrast to the trendy cafes and boutiques that dominated most of Brooklyn Heights. Just as Keanu was considering moving on, a glint of metal caught his eye. There, nestled between two parked motorcycles, stood a public water fountain. Relief washed over him as he guided Buddy towards it. With practiced ease, Keanu retrieved the collapsible container from his pocket. He pushed the silicone sides out, forming a makeshift bowl, and filled it with cool water from the fountain. As Buddy lapped eagerly at the water, Keanu stepped aside, allowing another patron, a burly man with tattoos snaking up his arms, to use the fountain. While Buddy drank, Keanu took the opportunity to observe the steady stream of patrons entering and exiting the bar. Despite their similar attire, leather jackets, worn jeans, and heavy boots, their demeanors varied widely. Some swaggered in with cocky grins, while others moved with a wary alertness, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. To Keanu's surprise, several of the bikers acknowledged Buddy with unexpected warmth. The tattooed man who had used the fountain after them paused, a smile softening his weathered features. "Nice pit bull you've got there," he commented, his voice gravelly but friendly. "People often misjudge them, you know. Kind of like they do with us bikers. Loyal to a fault, both of them, if you treat them right." Keanu nodded, appreciating the man's insight. "You're right about that," he replied. "There's often more than meets the eye." As they continued their conversation, a waitress emerged from the bar and took her place behind the hostess stand at the entrance. Her apron was slightly stained and crumpled, and she looked tired, but her face lit up when she saw Buddy. "Oh, what a handsome boy," she exclaimed, approaching them. She knelt down, offering her hand for Buddy to sniff. The dog responded with a gentle lick, his tail wagging. The waitress laughed, scratching behind his ears. "He's such a good boy," she said, then leaned in towards Keanu, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Kinder than half the men inside, I'd wager." She chuckled at her own joke. Keanu smiled in response, appreciating her light-hearted demeanor. He emptied the remaining water from the bowl, folded the silicone container, and tucked it back into his pocket. "Thanks for the warm welcome," he said, giving her a friendly wave as he prepared to continue their walk. As they moved away from the bar's vicinity, Keanu's ears picked up the sound of raised voices. He turned to see the same waitress now engaged in a heated exchange with a group of 5 bikers. Her posture was defensive, but her voice was firm as she stood her ground. "I told you yesterday, your gang's not welcome here anymore," she was saying, her words carrying clearly across the parking lot. "After what happened last time, the boss was clear. You're banned." The bikers towered over her, their faces twisted with anger. One of them, a hulking man with a shaved head, took a menacing step forward. "Move aside, sweetheart," he growled, "or we'll move you ourselves." The situation was escalating quickly. Keanu hesitated, torn between the desire to help and his responsibility to keep Buddy safe. Just as he was considering intervening, a group of other bikers emerged from the bar. They quickly positioned themselves around the waitress, forming a protective barrier between her and the troublemakers. "You heard the lady," one of them said, his voice low and dangerous. "Time for you to leave." Recognizing the potential for violence and mindful of his promise to the dogkeeper, Keanu decided it was time to make a strategic retreat. He quietly led Buddy away from the scene, not wanting to draw attention to themselves. As they walked, Keanu couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and unease. The confrontation at the bar had revealed an undercurrent of tension in the neighborhood, one that he hoped wouldn't impact the rest of their outing. After walking several blocks away from the tense scene at Iron and Ash, Keanu and Buddy found themselves in a more tranquil part of the neighborhood. The streets here were lined with trees, their leaves providing welcome shade from the relentless sun. As they rounded a corner, a quaint cafe came into view, its outdoor seating area a haven of calm in the bustling city. The cafe's patio was spacious and inviting, with wrought iron tables and chairs scattered beneath a canopy of string lights that crisscrossed overhead. Even in the daytime, the lights added a touch of whimsy to the scene. A chalkboard sign near the entrance proclaimed the day's specials in colorful, artistic lettering. Keanu paused, considering their options. The shaded patio seemed like the perfect spot to rest and grab a bite to eat while keeping Buddy comfortable. Making his decision, he approached one of the tables, carefully removing Buddy's leash. With practiced ease, Keanu settled into one of the chairs, then pulled an extra seat alongside his own. He patted the seat, inviting Buddy up. "Come on, boy," he said softly. "You've earned a rest." Buddy didn't need to be told twice. With surprising grace for his size, the pit bull jumped up onto the chair, settling himself comfortably. His well-behaved demeanor drew admiring glances from a few nearby patrons whom smiled at the furry friend. As Keanu was getting comfortable, a waitress approached their table. Her name tag identified her as Maggie, and she carried herself with the easy confidence of someone who truly enjoyed their job. "Good afternoon," she greeted them warmly, her professional demeanor softening as she noticed Buddy. "Oh, aren't you a handsome fellow?" she added, addressing the dog directly. Keanu smiled, appreciating her friendly attitude. "He certainly is," he agreed. "I hope it's all right that he's up here with me." Maggie waved off his concern. "As long as he's well-behaved, we're happy to have him. Now, what can I get for you two today?" Keanu considered for a moment. "I'll have a coffee and a steak sandwich, please. And could I get an additional unsalted steak portion for my friend here?" He gestured towards Buddy, who perked up at the mention of food. Maggie nodded, jotting down the order efficiently. "Of course, one coffee, one steak sandwich, and a special order for the distinguished gentleman," she said with a wink towards Buddy. "I'll have that right out for you." As Maggie headed back inside to place their order, Keanu settled in to wait. He pulled out his script from an inner pocket of his jacket, spreading it out on the table. While Buddy lounged contentedly beside him, Keanu alternated between reviewing his lines. Every so often, Keanu would reach over to give Buddy a gentle pat, dividing his attention between work and his canine companion. "Just a little longer, Buddy," he murmured, rubbing the dog's head affectionately. "Food's coming soon." True to her word, Maggie returned shortly with their order. "Here's your coffee," she said, placing the cup in front of Keanu. "The kitchen is just finishing up your steak and your friend's special order. It'll be out in just a moment." Keanu thanked her as the aroma of freshly brewed coffee roused him from his haze, making his stomach growl. Just as he was about to take a sip, a nearby commotion shattered the peaceful atmosphere. A burly man in a biker vest was passing their table, his face twisted in a sneer. "Filthy animals," he muttered, loud enough for Keanu to hear. "Sitting at the table like they're people." Before Keanu could react, the man's boot lashed out, catching Buddy in the side. The dog let out a pained whimper that quickly turned into defensive barking, drawing the attention of everyone on the patio. In an instant, the peaceful scene had transformed into one of conflict, with Buddy's distressed barking serving as a stark reminder of how quickly situations could change. Keanu's muscles tensed, his relaxed demeanor evaporating as he prepared to confront this unexpected threat. Keanu's reaction was instantaneous. He sprang to his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the patio floor. His body was taut with anger, his eyes blazing as he confronted the biker. The sudden movement drew the attention of everyone on the patio, creating a palpable tension in the air. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Keanu demanded, his voice low and dangerous. He positioned himself between Buddy and the aggressor, his protective instinct in full force. The biker, momentarily taken aback by Keanu's swift response, took a step back from Buddy's growling, but maintained his aggressive stance. He spat on the ground, his face contorted with disgust. "Control your beast," he snarled. "How dare it show its teeth to a man?" Keanu's hand found its way to Buddy's back, his touch gentle but firm, helping to calm the agitated dog. The contrast between Keanu's soothing presence and the biker's hostility was stark. "Buddy only reacts to threats," Keanu said, his voice steady despite his anger. "You're the one who provoked him. He's never hurt anyone unless they hurt him first." The biker's face twisted into a mocking sneer. "Coward dog, coward owner," he taunted, his words dripping with contempt. For a brief moment, Keanu's composure slipped. His hand shot out, grabbing the front of the biker's vest. The crowd around them gasped, the tension ratcheting up another notch. But just as quickly as it had happened, Keanu caught himself. He was acutely aware of the watching crowd, of Maggie's worried face as she approached with their food. Keanu released his grip on the vest, taking a deep breath to center himself. The biker, sensing Keanu's restraint, seized the moment to make his threat. "You'll pay for this," he growled, dusting off the spot where Keanu had grabbed him. "Both of you." With a final sneer, he turned and walked away, his heavy boots thudding against the patio floor. As the biker retreated, Keanu's trained actor's eye couldn't help but notice details about his appearance. The vest the man wore bore a distinctive insignia, a snarling tiger with extended claws. It was the same design he had seen on the troublemakers outside Iron and Ash earlier. The connection sent a chill down his spine, but he pushed the thought aside for the moment. Keanu turned his attention back to Buddy, checking the dog over for any signs of injury. Finding none, he let out a sigh of relief. The smell of the freshly grilled sandwich pulled him back to reality, reminding him of the purpose of their stop. Maggie approached cautiously, concern etched on her face. "I'm so sorry about that," she said, setting down the plates. "Are you both all right?" Keanu nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. "We're fine, I'm sorry for the commotion." Maggie shook her head. "Don't apologize. Those bikers have been harassing our customers for weeks now in this neighborhood. This is the first time one has gone after an animal, though." She glanced around nervously before adding in a lower voice, "The owner's been trying to get more security, but it's not easy." As Maggie excused herself, Keanu settled back into his chair. The incident had left him shaken, more than he cared to admit. He looked down at his sandwich, suddenly aware of how hungry he was. Perhaps that's why he had reacted so impulsively to the biker's provocation. Buddy, too, seemed to have recovered from the shock. His nose twitched at the scent of the steak, a string of drool forming at the corner of his mouth. Keanu couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. "All right, Buddy," he said, reaching for the dog's plate. "Let's enjoy our meal. We've earned it after that excitement." As they ate, Keanu found his thoughts drifting back to the biker and his ominous threat. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, that somehow their paths would cross again before the day was done. But for now, he pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the simple pleasure of sharing a meal with his new four-legged friend. As Keanu finished the last bite of his sandwich, he glanced at his watch and realized with a start that their break was nearly over. Time had slipped away faster than he'd anticipated, and they needed to head back to the set soon. "Looks like we need to get going, Buddy," Keanu said, giving the dog an affectionate pat. "But first, I need to use the restroom. Mind waiting for me?" Buddy tilted his head as if considering the question, then settled back into his chair with a contented sigh. Keanu couldn't help but smile at the dog's seemingly human-like response. Standing up, Keanu carefully secured Buddy's leash to the table leg. He caught Maggie's eye as she passed by with a tray of drinks for another table. "Would you mind keeping an eye on him for a moment?" he asked. "I'll just be a few minutes." Maggie nodded, her smile warm. "Of course, no problem at all." Keanu made his way inside the cafe, weaving through the tables to the back where a small sign indicated the restrooms. To his dismay, he found a few line of people waiting. He considered going back outside to wait, but the pressure in his bladder convinced him otherwise. He'd just have to be as quick as possible. The minutes ticked by slowly as Keanu waited his turn, his foot tapping impatiently. He couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease, a sense that he shouldn't have left Buddy alone. But that was ridiculous, wasn't it? The dog was perfectly safe in Maggie's care. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably no more than 10 minutes, Keanu emerged from the restroom. He hurried back outside, eager to collect Buddy and head back to the set. As he stepped onto the patio, his heart sank. Buddy was alone at the table, Maggie nowhere in sight. But that wasn't what sent a chill down Keanu's spine. It was the sight of Buddy clearly in distress, struggling to breathe. Keanu rushed to the dog's side, his mind racing. Buddy was choking, his body heaving as he tried desperately to expel something from his throat. Panic threatened to overwhelm Keanu, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Water!" he called out, his voice tight with urgency. "I need water, quickly!" A waitress, not Maggie, but a younger girl with a name tag that read Lila, responded promptly, bringing over a bottle of water. With careful precision, Keanu administered the water, holding Buddy's jaw up to help whatever was stuck pass through. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a final heave, Buddy managed to swallow. The immediate crisis passed, but the dog still looked distressed, his eyes unfocused and his tail drooping. It was at this moment that Maggie returned, her face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she said, breathless. The kitchen needed me urgently, but I asked Lila to watch him. Lila, looking nervous, stepped forward. There was a man here, she said hesitantly. He seemed friendly. He fed the dog a sausage. I thought it was okay. As Lila described the man, bearded, chubby-cheeked with a mohawk, wearing leather gloves and a vest with a tiger claw insignia, Keanu felt his blood run cold. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. "Is there a vet nearby?" Keanu asked urgently, his eyes darting between Maggie and Lila, already fearing that something else was inside the sausage. They exchanged a quick glance before Maggie nodded. "There's one about 3 blocks from here," she said, pointing down the street. "Take a left at the next intersection. You can't miss it." Keanu nodded, his mind already racing ahead. He left a generous tip on the table, along with money for the bottled water, and prepared to leave. But as he stood up, Buddy suddenly collapsed, his legs giving out beneath him. The dog's condition was deteriorating rapidly. His tail hung limp, his eyes were becoming unfocused, and distressed whimpers escaped his throat. Keanu knew they didn't have a moment to lose. Without hesitation, Keanu scooped Buddy into his arms. The dog's substantial weight made the task challenging, but adrenaline lent Keanu strength. With a final nod of thanks to the shocked waitresses, Keanu set off at a run towards the veterinary clinic, praying they wouldn't be too late. Keanu's heart pounded in his chest as he raced through the streets of Brooklyn Heights, Buddy's substantial weight cradled in his arms. The urgency of the situation was evident in his rapid pace and focused determination. Passers-by turned to stare at the sight of a man carrying a large pit bull, but Keanu paid them no mind. His entire world had narrowed down to the precious cargo in his arms and the desperate need to reach the veterinary clinic. The 3 blocks to the clinic felt like miles. Sweat beaded on Keanu's forehead, both from exertion and fear. Buddy's condition seemed to worsen with each passing moment, his whimpers growing weaker, his body becoming increasingly limp. Finally, the clinic came into view. Its white facade and blue cross sign were like a beacon of hope. Keanu burst through the doors, his voice hoarse as he called out, "Please, I need help. My dog's been poisoned." The reception area erupted into action. A woman in scrubs, her name tag identified her as Dr. Harper, quickly took charge of the situation. "Bring him this way," she directed, leading Keanu to an examination room. "Put him on the table." Keanu gently laid Buddy on the cold metal surface, his hands lingering for a moment on the dog's fur. Dr. Harper immediately began her examination, her movements quick and precise. "Can you tell me what happened?" she asked, her eyes never leaving Buddy as she checked his vital signs. Keanu recounted the events at the cafe as best he could, his words tumbling out in a rush. "Someone fed him something, a sausage, I think, but it must have been laced with something. He started choking and then he just collapsed." Dr. Harper nodded, her face grave. "His pupils are dilated, and his symptoms are consistent with poisoning, likely drug-related given how quickly it's affecting him." She turned to a nearby nurse. "We need to run blood tests immediately to identify the substance and administer antidote to him." As the nurse hurried to carry out the order, Dr. Harper outlined her immediate treatment plan. "We're going to start by giving him activated charcoal to neutralize the poison," she explained. "We'll also put him on IV fluids to flush the toxins and help stabilize his condition while waiting for the test result." Keanu nodded, trying to process the information through his worry. "Do whatever you need to do," he said. "Just please save him." As the medical team worked on Buddy, Keanu found himself ushered back to the waiting room. The reality of the situation began to sink in, and with it came the realization that he needed to inform the film crew about what had happened. With shaking hands, he pulled out his phone and dialed the director's number. The conversation was brief, but weighty. Keanu explained the situation, his voice catching as he relayed the seriousness of Buddy's condition. The director's initial frustration at the disruption to the shooting schedule quickly gave way to concern. "Don't worry about the shoot," the director assured him. "We'll reschedule, just take care of Buddy. And Keanu, make sure you document everything. We might need it for insurance or legal reasons." After ending the call, Keanu arranged for the dog keeper to come to the clinic. He knew they would need to properly document the incident, both for the production and in case they decided to pursue legal action against Buddy's attacker. As he settled in for what promised to be an anxious wait, Keanu couldn't help but reflect on how quickly this day had spiraled out of control. What had started as a simple walk had turned into a life-or-death situation, and somewhere out there, the man responsible for this was still free. Keanu's jaw clenched at the thought. He had always prided himself on being a peaceful person, on choosing diplomacy over confrontation. But in this moment, as he waited to hear if Buddy would survive, he found himself wrestling with a desire for justice, or was it vengeance, that he had rarely experienced before. The minutes ticked by slowly, each one feeling like an eternity, as Keanu waited for news about Buddy's condition. The sterile smell of the clinic, the muted sounds of other animals, and the quiet efficiency of the staff all blended into a surreal backdrop to his worried thoughts. All he could do now was wait and hope that they had reached help in time. The waiting room clock ticked relentlessly, each second feeling like an eternity to Keanu, as he anxiously awaited news of Buddy's condition. The sterile environment of the veterinary clinic, with its antiseptic smell and muted colors, did little to calm his nerves. Other pet owners came and went, their own worries etched on their faces, but Keanu barely noticed them. His mind was consumed with thoughts of Buddy and the malicious act that had brought them here. At precisely 1:42 p.m., after what felt like hours but had only been about 30 minutes, Dr. Harper emerged from the treatment area. Her face was serious but not grim, which Keanu took as a hopeful sign. She approached him, clipboard in hand, her demeanor professional yet compassionate. "Mr. Reeves," she began, taking a seat next to him, "I have the blood test results." Keanu leaned forward, his heart racing. "How is he? Is Buddy going to be okay?" Dr. Harper nodded slowly. "Buddy is stable for now, but he's not out of the woods yet. The blood tests revealed a concerning combination of substances in his system." She paused, her brow furrowing slightly. "We found traces of a powerful narcotic mixed with chemicals similar to those found in rat poison. It's a combination that could have been lethal without quick intervention." Keanu felt his blood run cold at her words. The deliberate nature of the attack became even clearer. This wasn't just a cruel prank, but a calculated attempt to seriously harm or even kill Buddy. "The good news," Dr. Harper continued, "is that we caught it early. The activated charcoal we administered has helped neutralize much of the poison, and the IV fluids are working to flush his system. We've also started him on specific antidotes for the identified toxins." As Dr. Harper explained the details of Buddy's treatment plan, Keanu found his mind drifting to the biker who had threatened them. The pieces were falling into place: the confrontation at the cafe, the man who had fed Buddy the sausage, and now this poisoning attempt. It was all connected, and the realization filled Keanu with a mixture of anger and determination. His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of the film's dog keeper. The man looked worried and slightly out of breath, as if he had rushed over as soon as he got the call. "Mr. Reeves," he said, approaching them, "I came as soon as I heard. How's Buddy doing?" Keanu stood, briefly filling the dog keeper in on Buddy's condition and the events that had led to it. As he spoke, he felt a shift within himself. He had brought Buddy into this situation, however unintentionally, and now he felt responsible for seeing it through. "I need to go settle something," Keanu said, his voice low and determined. "Can you stay here and watch over Buddy?" The dog keeper nodded, though he looked confused. "Of course, but where are you going?" Keanu's expression hardened. "There's someone I need to find, the person responsible for this." He turned to Dr. Harper. "Doctor, I'm covering all of Buddy's medical expenses. Please do everything you can for him." Dr. Harper assured him they would provide the best possible care. As Keanu prepared to leave, he methodically returned the leash, water container, and waste bags to the dog keeper, the act feeling symbolic of his transfer of responsibility. "I'll be back," Keanu promised, his voice carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. "Take care of him." With a final glance at the door leading to where Buddy was being treated, Keanu strode out of the clinic. His walk was purposeful, his expression set with quiet determination. He knew exactly where he needed to go, back to Iron and Ash, where this whole ordeal had begun. As he made his way through the streets of Brooklyn Heights, Keanu's mind was clear and focused. This wasn't about revenge, he told himself. It was about justice, about ensuring that whoever had done this to Buddy couldn't harm anyone else. And yet, a small part of him couldn't deny the anger simmering just beneath the surface, the desire to confront the person who had so callously threatened an innocent animal. The sun was beginning its descent in the sky as Keanu approached Iron and Ash. The bar loomed before him, its weathered exterior a stark contrast to the trendy establishments that surrounded it. Keanu paused for a moment, taking a deep breath to center himself. He knew that what he was about to do could be dangerous, but the image of Buddy fighting for his life in the veterinary clinic steeled his resolve. As Keanu approached Iron and Ash, the gravity of the situation began to sink in. The bar stood before him, its weathered exterior a silent testament to years of rough patronage. The rumble of motorcycles filled the air, a constant backdrop to the tension that seemed to radiate from the building. Keanu paused across the street, taking a moment to gather his thoughts and consider his options. His initial plan to confront the biker responsible for Buddy's condition directly suddenly seemed foolhardy. He was one man about to walk into a den of potentially hostile bikers, and not just any man, but a recognizable celebrity. The weight of his public persona, usually an afterthought in his daily life, now loomed large in his strategic thinking. As he stood there weighing his options, Keanu observed a group of bikers gathered outside the bar. He recognized them as the troublemakers from earlier, their aggressive postures and loud voices carrying across the street. The female waitress who had stood her ground earlier was nowhere to be seen. In her place was a visibly intimidated male employee who cowered as the bikers forced their way inside. The scene before him painted a clear picture of the dynamic at play. This wasn't just about one incident with a dog. It was a pattern of intimidation and control that affected the entire neighborhood. Keanu's actor instincts kicked in, urging him to gather more information before taking action. He waited until the last of the bikers had entered the bar before approaching the frightened employee, who was now nervously sweeping the entrance. "Rough crowd," Keanu commented casually, nodding towards the door. The employee looked up, his eyes widening slightly in recognition before darting nervously back to the door. "You have no idea," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "The woman who was supposed to stand here is taken to a hospital." Keanu was surprised at the news. It must be the same young woman who greeted Buddy. Keanu leaned in, keeping his voice low. "How long has this been going on?" The employee sighed, his shoulders slumping. "Months now, it's getting worse. Last month, they broke my nose and 2 of my fingers when I tried to cut one of them off." He flexed his hand unconsciously, wincing at the memory. "I've been thinking about quitting, Nessa, the waitress too, but..." "But what?" Keanu prompted gently. "I handed in my resignation letter," the man admitted, "but the boss asked me to stay until they find a replacement. Said he needs all hands on deck to deal with this." He gestured vaguely towards the bar. Keanu frowned, his sense of injustice growing. "That's not right. You shouldn't have to put yourself in danger like this." The employee shrugged helplessly. "The boss knows my address. I'm scared of what might happen if I just walk away." As they talked, Keanu's eyes were drawn to the darkened windows of the bar. Through the grimy glass, he could make out the start of another altercation. The bikers were initiating conflicts with other patrons, their aggressive behavior a stark contrast to the cowering bar staff. The scene confirmed what Keanu had begun to suspect. Direct confrontation would be unwise, possibly even dangerous. Not just for him, but for the employees and other patrons caught in the crossfire. A plan began to form in Keanu's mind. He had connections, people who could handle this situation officially and safely. One name in particular stood out: Sheriff Hank Morrison, a personal friend who had the authority and experience to deal with situations like this. Keanu turned back to the employee, his decision made. "Listen, I think I know someone who can help." The employee nodded, a glimmer of hope appearing in his eyes. "Who are you going to call?" Keanu gave him a reassuring smile. Someone who can put an end to this legally and safely. Just keep your head down and stay safe. Help is on the way. With that, Keanu stepped away from the bar, pulling out his phone. He dialed Sheriff Hank Morrison's number, his fingers moving with purpose. As the phone rang, Keanu's mind raced, organizing the information he needed to convey. "Hank," Keanu said when the call connected, his voice low and urgent. "It's Keanu. I need your help with a situation in Brooklyn Heights." Keanu's conversation with Sheriff Hank Morrison was brief but intense. He efficiently outlined the day's events, his voice tight with controlled urgency, as he described the attack on Buddy and the likely presence of illegal substances. "The bikers who poisoned the dog are at a bar called Iron and Ash," Keanu explained, his eyes never leaving the bar's entrance. "They most likely have substances with them since they drugged the dog. I'm at the location now." Sheriff Morrison's voice came through the phone, calm but serious. "I understand, Keanu. Don't do anything rash. Stay put and don't engage. We'll be there soon." Keanu agreed, ending the call with a sense of relief. He trusted Hank to handle the situation professionally and effectively. Now all he had to do was wait. As he put his phone away, Keanu noticed the bar employee watching him with a mixture of hope and fear. The man approached hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper. Did you call the police?" Keanu nodded, but before he could respond further, the employee's face contorted with panic. "No, you can't," he hissed. "The business is not good with the police here. The boss will—" Keanu cut him off gently but firmly. "Think about what you're saying. What's left to protect here? A business that can't ensure basic security for its staff, that allows criminals to threaten the community." The employee fell silent, unable to answer. Keanu continued, his voice softening. "There should be real security guards posted outside the door instead of waitresses or employees like yourself being put in harm's way. This isn't right, and you know it." The man nodded slowly, the truth of Keanu's words sinking in. "You're right," he admitted quietly. Their conversation was interrupted by the distant wail of sirens. Within minutes, multiple police cars arrived on the scene, their silent approach suggesting tactical awareness. Officers poured out of the vehicles, their movements coordinated and purposeful. Keanu watched as the police efficiently entered the bar. The element of surprise worked in their favor. Before the bikers could react, the officers had secured the premises. Through the windows, Keanu could see the chaos inside, as tables were overturned and patrons were corralled. The search of the premises was thorough and methodical. Keanu overheard snippets of conversation between officers as they emerged from the bar, discussing the significant cache of illegal substances they had discovered. It wasn't just personal possessions. A supply found in the storage area suggested organized distribution. As the arrests began, Keanu felt a mix of emotions wash over him. Relief that justice was being served, satisfaction that the threat to the community was being neutralized, and a lingering anger at what had been done to Buddy. The arrest sequence unfolded with professional efficiency. Each suspect was properly secured, their rights read as they were led to waiting police vehicles. The flashing lights of the police cars cast an eerie glow over the scene, drawing the attention of gathering onlookers. Keanu, suddenly aware of the growing crowd and the potential for recognition, slipped on his sunglasses. He had done what he came to do, and now it was time to step back and let the law take its course. As he watched the last of the bikers being led away, Keanu's thoughts turned back to Buddy. With the immediate threat neutralized, he could now focus on what really mattered, ensuring the dog's recovery and safe return to the film set. With one last look at the scene unfolding before him, Keanu turned and began making his way back towards the veterinary clinic. The day's events had taken an unexpected turn, but he felt a sense of closure knowing that those responsible for Buddy's condition would face justice. As Keanu takes a step towards the direction of the veterinary clinic, his path unexpectedly crossed with that of the arrested bikers. The police were in the process of loading the last few into their vehicles when Keanu found himself face to face with a familiar figure, the man who had kicked Buddy at the cafe. The biker's eyes widened in recognition, a mixture of anger and fear flashing across his face as he realized the man behind the sunglass was the same as the person who grabbed him at the cafe. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as they locked eyes. Keanu felt a surge of emotions, anger, disgust, but also a strange sense of pity for someone whose life had led them to this point. He took a deep breath, centering himself before speaking. "You know," Keanu said, his voice low and controlled, "there's a line I recently read that seems appropriate right now. You don't mess with a man's dog." He paused, letting the words sink in. This is real life and actions have real consequences. The biker's face contorted with rage. "I hope that dog died," he spat, struggling against the officer holding him. Keanu's expression remained impassive, but his eyes hardened. He didn't. And now, you'll have plenty of time to think about why hurting an innocent animal seemed like a good idea. With that, Keanu turned and walked away, never looking back even as he heard the biker shouting obscenities behind him. The officers quickly silenced the man, pushing him into the back of a police car. As Keanu continued his walk back to the veterinary clinic, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The confrontation, brief as it was, had provided a sense of closure. He had faced the man responsible for Buddy's condition and had done so without lowering himself to violence or vengeance. The streets that earlier had seen him rushing with an injured Buddy now witnessed his measured return. The tension that had driven him earlier had been replaced by a quiet determination to see Buddy's recovery through. When Keanu arrived at the clinic, he found Dr. Harper waiting for him. Her face bore a tired smile, which Keanu took as a good sign. "Mr. Reeves," she greeted him, "I'm happy to report that Buddy is stabilizing. The antidotes and supportive care are working well. We've managed to counteract most of the poison's effects." Keanu felt a wave of relief wash over him. "That's wonderful news, Doctor. What's the next step?" Dr. Harper led him to Buddy's recovery area as she explained. "We'll keep him under observation for the next 24 hours to monitor for any potential complications. He'll be on a regimen of medications, mainly anti-nausea drugs and liver protectants. We also have him on a special diet to support his recovery." As they reached Buddy's enclosure, Keanu saw the dog lying on a soft bed, various monitors attached to him. Despite the tubes and wires, Buddy's tail gave a weak wag when he saw Keanu, bringing a lump to Keanu's throat. "Hey, Buddy," Keanu said softly, kneeling down to be at eye level with the dog. "You're going to be okay. We got the bad guys." Dr. Harper smiled at the interaction. "If there are no complications, Buddy should be able to go home tomorrow. You'll need to continue his medication regimen and follow the special diet instructions, but his prognosis is good." Keanu nodded, already making mental notes. "I'll be here first thing in the morning," he promised. "My hotel is nearby, so I can be here quickly if anything changes." As they went over the details of Buddy's care and the pickup arrangements for the next day, Keanu's attention shifted to a small TV in the clinic's reception area. The local news was reporting on the arrests at Iron and Ash, highlighting multiple charges against the biker gang members, with a particular focus on animal cruelty. The report mentioned that detectives had found traces of dog fur on one of the men's boots. While official confirmation was still pending, there was a mention of tests being conducted to confirm animal cruelty. Keanu felt a sense of satisfaction as he watched the report. Justice was being served, and the neighborhood would be safer for it. He was relieved to note that the news made no mention of his involvement. Sheriff Hank had kept his word about discretion. The report went on to mention that the owner of Iron and Ash was being investigated, and the bar would be closed pending further inquiry. It seemed the day's events would lead to positive changes for the entire community. As Keanu prepared to leave the clinic, he felt a complex mix of emotions. The day had been a roller coaster of fear, anger, and now, finally, relief. But more than that, he felt a deep connection to Buddy that went beyond their on-screen relationship. They had been through something real together, something that would undoubtedly translate into a more authentic performance when they returned to set. With a final pat for Buddy and a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Harper and her team, Keanu stepped out into the early evening air. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, returning to the set, adjusting schedules, and ensuring Buddy's continued recovery. But for now, he was content in the knowledge that they had overcome a significant hurdle together. The walk back to his hotel gave Keanu time to reflect on the day's events. The bustling streets of Brooklyn Heights seemed different now, as if the resolution of the conflict at Iron and Ash had somehow changed the very atmosphere of the neighborhood. As he walked, Keanu found his thoughts drifting to Buddy and the unexpected bond that had formed between them. What had started as a simple walk to help him get into character had turned into a life-or-death struggle that tested not just his acting skills, but his real-life courage and determination. Keanu couldn't help but think about how this experience would impact their on-screen chemistry. The shared ordeal had created a connection that went beyond the script, a genuine trust and affection that would undoubtedly translate into more authentic performances. As he neared his hotel, Keanu's phone rang. The screen displayed the name of the movie's producer. Taking a deep breath, Keanu answered the call. "Keanu," the producer's voice came through, a mix of concern and frustration evident in his tone. "How's Buddy doing?" Keanu gave a concise summary of Buddy's condition and prognosis, emphasizing the positive outlook for his recovery. As he spoke, he could almost hear the gears turning in the producer's head, calculating the impact on their shooting schedule. "This is going to set us back," the producer said with a sigh. "We'll need to adjust the shooting sequence, maybe move some of your scenes without Buddy to the front of the schedule." "I understand," Keanu replied, "but Buddy's health has to come first. We can't rush his recovery." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when the producer spoke again, his voice had softened. "You're right, of course. We'll make it work. The vet said he should be ready to return in a few days." "That's the hope," Keanu confirmed. "I'll be picking him up tomorrow, and we'll follow the vet's instructions for his care and recovery." They discussed the logistics for a few more minutes, working out a tentative plan to reshoot the scenes that had been scheduled for that afternoon and the following day. The producer's willingness to prioritize Buddy's well-being over immediate shooting needs was a pleasant surprise to Keanu, demonstrating a positive shift in the industry's attitude toward animal actors. As Keanu ended the call and stepped into the hotel lobby, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Sheriff Hank Morrison. "Operation successful. All suspects in custody. Evidence secured. Your involvement remains confidential. Well done, Keanu." A small smile played on Keanu's lips as he read the message. The sheriff's efficient handling of the situation and his discretion in keeping Keanu's involvement under wraps was exactly why he had turned to Hank for help. It was reassuring to know that the threat to Buddy and the neighborhood had been neutralized without compromising Keanu's privacy or the film production. The adventure might have come to an end, but Keanu knew that his journey with Buddy was far from over. Tomorrow would bring a new day, new scenes to shoot, and a deepened connection with his four-legged co-star. As sleep finally claimed him, Keanu's face bore a small, contented smile, a reflection of the satisfaction that comes from facing adversity and emerging stronger on the other side.